Welcome to today's session on the power of purpose, motivating and engaging employees in the future of work. My name is Patience Ogunbona, and I'm running this session on behalf of the Diverse Executive Directory. So, I know that this session is going to be engaging and it's going to give some food for thought and some insights for you today. Therefore, I want to start with a couple of key questions. And I want you to be reflecting on these questions as we go ahead for this very short, brief mini session today. The first question is, how has the world of work changed in the last decade? We all know that change is something that is constant, but we want to reflect on the last decade. We also want to reflect on the idea that purpose at work is only for purpose-driven organizations, and whether or not every organization actually needs to be purpose-driven. So, just before we dive into answering those questions, which I want you to be reflecting on as we go along, but I know that I will also be sharing my own perspective on it, I just want to do a brief introduction. So, I'm an executive business and leadership coach, consultant, trainer, speaker, and behavioral analyst. And all these hats I wear help me to actually work with ambitious women in business and leadership, helping them to build quiet confidence and also lead with purpose and presence, and to also help organizations to achieve that diversity of thought, diversity of talents within their teams and create the right team dynamics as well as the right leadership pipelines. And some of the topics that I speak about are introversion, personal brand and executive presence, courageous leadership, team dynamics and communication, and intersectionality. And so today, in my role as a speaker, as a trainer, I want to be sharing some insights with you on the power of the purpose at work. So let's try to answer the questions that I have posed, starting with what's happened in the last decade. We have climate change. We know that in the past, many people consider climate change to be the problem that really affects only the third world nations. But we now know that first world nations are beginning to experience the great impact of climate change, especially with fires that have been happening across different countries that we know about in the news even more recently. And then we have Brexit, one of the defining things that had defined the relationship between Europe, UK, and the world in general in some shape or the other. This has had a great impact in the last decade. We also have, as a result of some of these things, diversity and inclusion became very important in the great scheme of things. But however, we know that in the last couple of months or a year or so, we've had challenges with trying to carry on with the progress that has been made. There's been a backward shift in the progress that has been made. And then we've got COVID-19, one of the most defining things about the last decade that has changed the way people feel about themselves and their lives in general because of the things that have been experienced. Humanity feels more vulnerable, and it's allowed us to actually tune in to what it means to be human. And as a result of that, while we're dealing with humanity, AI comes rushing, rushing very quickly in and grow, and the impact of AI growing at a great speed, meaning that a lot of people feel even increased vulnerability about their jobs, about the impact it will have in the world. Are the machines taking over? Even as more you feel human, you're being pushed to consider machines and how they will impact. So all this creates a different environment where people have to go to work, where people have to do their work every day. And one thing we know is that people going to work spend majority of their lives at work. So 9 to 5 is not technically 9 to 5 without factoring in all the times for commuting to work as well. So for most people, it's probably something like 7 to 8, not 9 to 5. And therefore, majority of the time people spend at work. And so having that vulnerability, they need to come up against dealing with understanding how this impacts their life, how this increases their vulnerability. Therefore, employees are now seeking and having an expectation that their jobs will bring them significant sense of purpose to their lives because they spend majority of the time. Now, this poses a lot of challenges for the new organization, for the future of work, for how organizations can feel that they are achieving success when they motivate and engage staff. And therefore, the future of work means and looks this way. Employers must now help to meet this need of finding purpose at work. Otherwise, they risk losing talents to companies that will. That's why I said, is every organization not supposed to be thinking about being purpose driven? So the challenge now, what's the challenge now that all this journey we have made in the last 10 years has created? Well, the first one is that we know that we now have multiple generations existing in the place of work with their values and differences and in perspective. And all the experiences that they have had in the last 10 years have been interpreted through different lenses across generations. And we also have companies that have done some research on the challenges that are faced now. And one of them is Gallup. More recently, a research done in 2024 has shown that only 23% of employees are actively engaged. This means that it's a current issue that, if not resolved, will continue into the future. Then we also have McKinsey's research that is also fairly recent, and they talk about the fact that 70% say work defines purpose, but only 18%, a small percentage, say that their job helps them to fulfill this. Finally, we know that a lot of the whole diversity and inclusion work that has been done has brought to the surface issues around neurodivergence and personalities in the workplace, and this can impact on team dynamics. But we know, according to Deloitte, that teams including neurodivergent professionals can be up to 30% more productive than neurotypical only teams. Therefore, can any organization afford to really ignore the idea about giving people something to look forward to at work, not just their paycheck, but that fulfillment that gives them that helps them feel that they are finding purpose. So, based on all of these things that I've talked about, what's your own view on the questions that I have asked? Feel free to, when you're watching this video, share with our community, the diverse executive community. Feel free to share with us. But just to carry on to provide some insights and some ways that organizations can begin to look at this properly in order to be able to engage and motivate employees, here are 6 purpose focused ways to do that. The first is to recognize that purpose, although personal, belongs at work. I've already explained the reason why. It's a lot of hours are spent by many people at work. Therefore, needing to find purpose at work is critical. And any organization that is ignoring this and thinking it will blow away is doing that at its peril, because a lot is also driving people to feel more vulnerable about their humanity, and having suffered a lot of losses due to the pressures that humanity has been under, the wars, the climate change, and all that. People are looking for more than just a paycheck at work. So, if that's the case, is it just going to be sending out things and trying to get people to tell you about it? Well, as a coach, I know that even at the top level, as an executive coach, at the top level, people are still asking themselves the question, I have run my career all this while, but now I really need to redefine what purpose means to me. And coaching is one of the ways that you can uncover that, whilst also providing directives for what the company stands for, what their purpose is, what their culture is, and how you can link both. You know that most people at work tend to think, what's in it for me? So if you can give people what's in it for them, as well as help them to understand what's in it for you, it's a win-win situation, right? So because of that as well, you need to help employees join the dot to connect daily roles to meaningful outcomes. Even if their tasks are little, even if they feel sometimes that they're not making a significant contribution, You need to point out what that contribution is, whether it's helping customers, whether it's in the results that you get, whether it's helping to build the community and make a difference. Letting your employees know that they're making a difference would help them to be able to think about how this is adding to their sense of fulfillment and purpose in the work that they do. And then we've already talked about the fact that there are different generations with different needs, different values, different perspectives. Therefore, for people to feel that they are gaining purpose at work, you might have to have a different conversation across generations. So, how do you bridge this gap with shared vision? Now, as somebody who also works with women, women who get menopausal have their challenges with belonging and safety in the workplace. Therefore, they feel that they have run out of the steam to be able to achieve purpose at work. It's your duty to retain those staff through bridging those generational gaps, through having different strategies for each generation that helps them to feel that they belong and they feel safe. And you do that effectively as well by embedding purpose into your communication and your culture. How you do things here, how you train managers to train their employees, to have a culture where people are focused on how does purpose link to the work that I do, and communicating this during times of maybe performance reviews and all the communication that you have one-to-one with your staff. How are you able to share with them to so that they understand that they are adding value and also feel that they are achieving purpose at work? Finally, to do this, obviously, you need to model purpose-led leadership in the workplace. It doesn't matter if you are a purpose-driven organization, you as the leader, having understood the power of helping your employees to feel motivated and engaged through purpose, to you have to be leading, you have to be having that purpose-led leadership. That requires authenticity, that requires stepping out with vulnerability, but the key element of it is the empathy to understand like the situation that we've been in over the last couple of years has made people vulnerable, causes mental health issues, causes self-doubt for women, especially going through transitions and all that in life, older generations who have to deal with the sandwich generation, who have to deal with family being ill, those kind of things. Some people come to work to have a different atmosphere. How are you going to lead us? How are you going to be a purpose led leader and help them to find purpose at work and to find happiness, possibly at work? So here is what you need to be thinking about. Clarity of purpose paired with bold action in motivating and engaging employees turns strategy into impact and income. So the question I asked about what's in it for me and what's in it for you, achieving that win-win comes from having that clarity of purpose for the organization, understanding and being clear about what your employee classes as purpose, and therefore using the kind of culture and communication to motivate them can turn all the strategies that you do into impact and income. And you want to do this by starting with having the right conversations. So, what's one conversation or change you can start this week to help your people to reconnect with purpose? Thank you for listening. Please feel free to drop your questions and your comments and engage in the conversation. How are you ensuring that you harness the power of purpose in your organization? I would love to know. Feel free to connect with me as well on LinkedIn and on my website, www.patienceogunbono.com. Thank you for listening and thank you for watching.